Consciousness, the unresolved problem of modern science. 1. The problem of subjective experience. You can use science to describe almost everything that happens in the brain. Electrical signals passing through neurons, neurotransmitters at work, attention networks, default mode networks, which regions process memory, which regulate emotion. Yet the more we understand the brain, the clearer one question becomes. Why are you having an experience? Why do you know that you exist? If everything is only matter, operating according to physical laws, then how does this inner sense, this feeling of being here, come into existence at all? 2. Neural correlates and conscious experience. Neuroscience is exceptionally good at one thing: finding correlations. When you feel fear, a specific brain region activates. When you feel anger, another network lights up. When you recall a memory, neural configurations shift. But all of this tells us only one thing. When the brain is in state A, people report experience B. That is correlation, not explanation. Explanation would mean this: from physical processes alone, we can derive subjective experience, necessarily, and with a clear mechanism. That has never happened. Philosopher Thomas Nagel exposed this gap with brutal clarity. You may know everything about a bat, how it flies, how it echolocates, the full structure of its nervous system. Yet you will never know what it is like to be a bat. Because experience is not contained in objective data, it exists only from the inside. 3. Why description is not explanation. Many people believe, if we measure enough detail, consciousness will eventually be explained. But this is a fundamental mistake. You can perfectly describe a system without explaining the experience occurring within it. The map is not the territory. You may possess complete data about the brain, electrical activity, synapses, circuits, algorithms, and still be unable to answer this. Why is there redness, pain, sadness, and the feeling I am the one experiencing this? Describing behavior does not automatically generate experience. 4. The hard problem of consciousness. Philosopher David Chalmers named this directly: the hard problem of consciousness. Not the question, what does the brain do? But rather, why is there a world of experience accompanying what the brain does? If consciousness were merely a function, then a computer should also know that it is computing. But it doesn't. It only processes. And here, neuroscience reaches its limit. 5. The limits of physicalist explanations. The most common rebuttal is this: science will explain it someday. We just don't have enough data yet. But the problem is not data. The problem is the conceptual bridge. You can measure everything physical, but experience is not a physical quantity. Calling consciousness an illusion does not solve the problem, because an illusion is still an experience. You cannot eliminate consciousness by renaming it. Every attempt to deny consciousness must still rely on consciousness to argue, and that is an unavoidable paradox. 6. Consciousness as the condition of experience. Look carefully. Everything you call matter is known only through experience: vision, touch, thought, measurement. In other words, matter always appears within consciousness. But what about consciousness itself? You never observe it as an object. You are it. You may doubt every content of experience, but you cannot doubt that experience is happening. Consciousness is not an object in the world. It is the ground upon which the world appears. 7. Frameworks of consciousness in modern science. At this point, science and philosophy must expand their frameworks. There are 3 major directions. First, consciousness is produced by the brain, yet no mechanism explains how. Second, consciousness is a fundamental property of reality, but this faces the combination problem. Third, consciousness is foundational, and matter is its manifestation, yet this must explain the stability of the shared world. None of these positions are easy, but all of them agree on one thing: consciousness is no longer a secondary issue. 8. First-person investigation of consciousness. Now you don't need to believe anything, just observe. Thoughts arise and fade, emotions emerge and dissolve. Memories appear, then disappear. Yet something remains. That which is aware of all of this. You are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your memories. You are the consciousness witnessing them. And when this becomes clear, you are not stepping away from science. You are touching the foundation of experience itself. 9. Consciousness. As a foundational question of reality. Perhaps one day science will develop a better model. But for now, one fact remains undeniable. You can doubt everything, except that experience is happening. And if the most certain fact of your life is precisely what remains unexplained, then perhaps consciousness is not a byproduct. It may be fundamental toward memory, intuition, and non-local mind. If you want to continue this journey, like, share, and subscribe, because in the next episode, we go one step further. Episode 4: Spiritual Memory, Reincarnation, Intuition, and what science hesitates to touch. And then the question will no longer be, what is consciousness? But rather, can consciousness extend beyond a single lifetime?